All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at how some video games, the kind that start with a smaller, dedicated audience, went on to become these huge global hits.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and the source we're using for this is this document called From Niche to Mainstream, How Niche Games Became Global Phenomena. It's kind of like a guidebook, a playbook for reaching a wider audience, I think.
I like it. A playbook.
Yeah, like what strategies did developers use, right, to get more people interested in their games without kind of losing that unique thing that made them special in the first place?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to dig into.
Let's do it.
First up is Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring is part of this genre called Souls-like games.
Right.
And Souls-like games are known for being really, really hard. Not really the kind of game you just pick up and instantly become good at.
Yeah, definitely. Souls-like games are known for their steep learning curve. It's like they attract a very dedicated but smaller audience.
So Elden Ring had to overcome that, right? I mean, how did they go from niche to this global phenomena?
Mm.
Was it just all the hype?
Well, I mean, hype definitely helped, but there was a strategy there. They didn't just rely on the hype. From Software, the developers, they brought in George R.R. Martin,
Oh, wow, the Game of Thrones guy.
the one and only,
Mm.
to help craft the games world, the lore.
That's a huge name. It's
Yeah.
going to be like instant interest, right? For a lot of people who maybe haven't even heard of Elden Ring or even know what a Souls-like game is.
Exactly. Like by partnering with Martin, they kind of broadened the game's appeal. It went beyond just the existing Souls fans. Like suddenly, people who might have been scared off by how hard those games are,
Yeah.
they were suddenly interested.
That's really interesting. It's like just bringing in a big name like that can completely change a project's trajectory.
It can. It
Mhm.
can. And, it wasn't just the name. Elden Ring was designed as an open world, which also helped make the game more accessible, especially for new players. Previous Souls games were much more linear. Like if you got stuck on a difficult boss, you were kind of stuck.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Elden Ring is different. Players can, explore, they can level up. If they get stuck somewhere, they can just go somewhere else and come back later.
Makes sense.
So it's less punishing for players who are, new to this kind of game.
It's like they found this balance, right? Like they kept that challenge that Souls-like games are known for,
Yeah.
but they also gave players options. Like you can approach the game at your own pace.
Yeah, you got it.
Clever. Okay, next game. We've got Hades, an indie game that when you first look at it, seems like a pretty typical roguelike. And roguelikes are all about like permadeath. You die, you start over and over again. It's a lot of repetition, a lot of dying.
Yeah.
So not really what you think of when you think of a game that's going to appeal to everyone.
Yeah. Not typically, no. But the developers, Supergiant Games, they had a different approach with Hades. They decided to release the game in early access. So it's like they let players play the game while it was still being made.
That's an interesting approach. So how did that help Hades become so successful?
Well, early access let Supergiant build a really strong community around the game by inviting players to participate in development,
Yeah.
giving feedback. It created a sense of ownership.
Gotcha. Like a collaboration between the developers and the players shaping the game together.
Yeah, exactly. And that community. Well, they became super important in spreading the word about Hades. It was like their excitement and even their frustrations. All of that helped the game get noticed.
Like free marketing, right?
Basically.
So it really shows the power of community, especially for like indie games that don't have big marketing budgets.
Yeah.
So did they actually change anything in the game based on all that early feedback they were getting?
Oh, absolutely. There were things that players didn't like, right? Or things that were maybe too difficult. And Supergiant really listened. They made changes to the difficulty, tweaked some character abilities. They even added stuff to the story based on what players were saying.
That's impressive. They really paid attention to the players.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to a game that's kind of close to my heart, Baldur's Gate 3. This one takes us into the world of CRPGs, your computer role-playing games. And it's based on, specifically, Dungeons & Dragons,
Right, yeah.
which is a tabletop game with, a passionate fan base.
Yeah.
But it can be a little niche, right?
A little bit, yeah. And CRPGs, especially the ones inspired by D&D, can be pretty complex. There are a lot of rules, and the gameplay can be demanding.
Yeah, it's not really pick up and play, right? You got to kind of invest some time to really get into it. So how did Baldur's Gate 3 manage to appeal to a larger audience? Did they simplify things, make it less D&D?
Actually, they didn't. Instead of like running away from the D&D connection, the developers, Lorien Studios, they leaned into it. They knew D&D was becoming more and more popular, thanks to things like Stranger Things, which featured the game.
Well, yeah.
So they kind of used that renewed interest, right? They brought in people who might have been curious about D&D, but maybe they'd never played a computer game like it before.
Okay, they rode that wave of D&D's popularity by a whole new crowd. That's really smart.
It was, and they didn't stop there. They also knew that modern gamers have high expectations for, how a game looks and feels. So they made sure that Baldur's Gate 3 was visually stunning. High-quality graphics, They have those cinematic cutscenes, and all the dialogue is fully voiced, like it's a big-budget game.
Yeah, so they kept the depth and complexity that CRPG fans love, but they presented it in a way that was really appealing visually, to a modern audience.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Really clever. Okay, let's talk about Disco Elysium. Now, this is a unique game because it's almost entirely driven by dialogue. Like, it's less about action and more about like reading and making choices. It's almost like an interactive novel.
Right. Disco Elysium it's all about the story and the choices you make. But yeah, with all that dialogue and the focus on, philosophical themes, it might seem like a pretty niche game, right? Especially since it was an independent project. They didn't have a huge marketing budget.
So how did it manage to get all this critical acclaim and break out of that niche perception?
Well, the developers, ZAUM, they knew they had something special. So they focused on getting the game in front of the right people. They targeted specifically indie game festivals.
Okay, so what are indie game festivals?
Well, think of them like events, right? Where they showcase all these innovative and unique games. Like they attract critics, journalists, all these people in the industry who are looking for something different, something new.
Gotcha. So it's like a targeted approach to marketing. You go directly to the people who are more likely to understand and appreciate a game like Disco Elysium.
Exactly. And it worked. Disco Elysium won awards at these festivals. And that got people talking, gaming media started paying attention, and eventually that led to a much wider audience.
It makes sense. Those early awards and positive reviews, they kind of give the game credibility, right? They get people curious.
Oh, they do. Okay, up next we have Undertale, and this game really defied the odds, It became this global phenomenon, and it was made by just one person. It's got this retro look, pixel art, and it's known for its combat system, but like you don't have to kill anyone. You can choose to befriend your enemies.
Yeah.
It's really unique.
Yeah, very unusual for a video game. So how did Undertale become so successful?
Community support played a huge role, like from the very beginning.
So what does that mean? Like, how did the community support Undertale while it was being made?
Well, Toby Fox, the creator, he launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund the game. And the campaign did amazingly well. Like, it raised way more money than he initially asked for. And that showed there was a lot of early interest in the game.
Wow. So it wasn't just about getting money, right? It was about building this community. These fans were really excited to see the game come to life.
Yeah, and that community, they didn't just sit back and wait, They actively spread the word. They made fan art. They talked about it online and all that excitement. It's hard to create that with just marketing alone.
No kidding. It's really amazing to see how much a passionate community can impact a game's reach.
Yeah, it really is. And, that community support continued after the game came out, too. Like, Undertale has these quirky characters, this catchy music, and these themes that make you think. And all of that inspired people to create things like fan art and music remixes. There were even, like, these elaborate fan theories about the story. And all this content, it spread everywhere on YouTube, on Twitch, and that just kept bringing in more and more players.
Like a chain reaction of creativity and excitement.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to another CRPG gem, Divinity: Original Sin 2. Now, this game is known for its classic gameplay, its turn-based combat. You take your turn, then the enemy takes theirs, and so on. But it's also a very long game. Like, it takes a long time to finish, and it's pretty complex.
You're right. Like, Divinity Original Sin 2 is like a tribute to those classic CRPGs. But yeah, its length and the complexity of the game, that might not appeal to, like, casual gamers.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So how did Larian Studios, the developers, how did they make sure the game reached a wider audience?
Well, like Undertale, they used Kickstarter to fund development and build a community around the game. They got their backers involved in the process, asking for feedback, incorporating suggestions. So again, it created that sense of ownership.
It seems like this community-driven development approach, it's becoming a trend, right?
It is, and it's a really powerful strategy. Like, it helps with funding, it helps with marketing,
Right.
but it also makes sure that the game connects with its audience right from the start.
Makes sense. And Divinity. Original Sin 2 also added co-op gameplay, right?
And they did. And that was huge because allowing players to experience the entire game with a friend, it adds this whole new layer to it. You're collaborating, you're talking, you're sharing the experience.
Yeah, it's more fun with friends.
Exactly. And that encourages players to spend even more time in the games world.
It's like turning a potentially solitary experience into like a social one.
Yeah, exactly. And to top it off, they also embraced mod support. So that's like letting players create and share their own content for the game, and that just adds even more possibilities, keeps the community active and engaged.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach, right? Community, co-op, mods. Really smart. They kept the core elements of a classic CRPG, but they also found ways to reach a much bigger audience. All right, last but not least, let's talk about Nier Automata. Now, this game, it combines philosophical storytelling with, like, intense action. And it became super successful, even though the Nier series was pretty niche before.
Right. The previous Nier games, they had a smaller fan base, especially here in the West. They were known for their stories, which, they could be pretty dark, sometimes even confusing.
Yeah, not exactly lighthearted entertainment.
Right. So what did Nier Automata do differently to change that, to become this big hit? Well, Square Enix, the publisher, they knew the Nier series had its fans, but they also knew they needed to expand its appeal. So they made this strategic decision to bring in Platinum Games.
And who are they?
Platinum Games, they're a studio that's like famous for making really stylish action games.
So they're the action experts.
Exactly.
And that's like the perfect fit for Nier, right?
Yeah.
Combining those two things.
It was a perfect match. Platinum Games brought that fast-paced, fluid combat that they're known for to Nier Automata, and it made the game immediately appealing to action game fans, even if they'd never played a Nier game before.
Smart. So they kind of expanded the appeal without losing that unique Nier style.
Exactly. And to make sure they reach as many people as possible, they released the game on multiple platforms at the same time, like PC, PS4, you name it. The previous Nier games had more limited releases, sometimes only on one platform or just in certain regions. But by making Automata accessible to everyone right from the start, they just massively increased the number of people who could play it.
Right, making it available to more people. That definitely makes a difference.
Yeah.
So is there anything else they did that helped?
Oh, yeah. Their marketing was spot on. They focused on all the positive reviews. They talked about how unique the game was, how it blended different genres, and the story, how thought-provoking it was. And the visuals, the game is just beautiful. They really presented Nier Automata as something surprising, something you wouldn't expect, and that made people curious.
So strategic partnerships, a multi-platform release, and a really good marketing campaign. It's like a recipe for success.
It really is. And Nier Automata shows us how a game, even one that started with a niche audience, can become a mainstream success with the right plan, creative collaborations, and good marketing.
Wow, we've covered a lot. Elden Ring, Hades, Baldur's Gate 3, Disco Elysium, Undertale, Divinity, Original Sin 2, and Nier Automata, all these games that managed to like break out of their shells and become popular with a global audience. But there's more. We're just getting started. In part 2, we're going to look deeper at the common threads running through these success stories. Like what strategies did these developers use? What challenges did they face? And what can we learn from their journey to mainstream success?
I'm ready for part 2.
Me too.
It's amazing, right, how these games that seemed, I don't know, maybe a little too niche, ended up finding such a huge audience.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. Like, it gives you hope, right? That if you have something special, something unique, you can still find a way to share it with the world. It's like they figured out the secret formula,
The secret formula, huh? I like that.
Yeah. So what is it? What are some of the things that these games did that helped them become so successful?
Well, one thing that stands out is community. Like, they really understood how to build a community around their games. Remember how we talked about early access?
Yeah, where players can, like, play the game while it's still being developed.
Oh, exactly. Games like Hades, Baldur's Gate 3, Divinity, Original Sin 2, they all used early access to get players involved, to get their feedback, to make them feel like they were a part of the process.
It's risky, though, right? I mean, opening yourself up to criticism like that when the game isn't even finished.
It is, definitely. But it can pay off big time. By listening to the players, by taking their feedback seriously, these developers were able to build a really strong, loyal following. Like, people felt invested in the games, they were excited to see them succeed.
And they became like ambassadors, right?
Yeah.
Spreading the word, getting other people excited about the game.
Exactly. It's like the best kind of marketing you can get. Authentic, organic, driven by genuine enthusiasm. And it's not just early access. Think about Undertale, right? They used Kickstarter to connect with their audience, to build that community from the very beginning.
Right? And Kickstarter's great for that. Like, it allows creators to connect directly with their fans, to build that sense of ownership. People feel like they're part of something special, something they helped create.
Exactly. And that shared passion, that excitement, it spreads. People tell their friends, they share it online. And well, you know the rest. The game takes off.
It's amazing how powerful a community can be, especially in this digital age. But community alone isn't enough, right? You need a good game, too.
Of course, of course. And that's another thing these games all had in common: quality. They were all exceptionally well made, polished, with a lot of attention to detail. It didn't matter if they were indie games or big budget productions, the quality shone through.
Like, they knew that to break out of that niche, they had to create something truly special, something that would grab people's attention,
Yeah.
something that transcended genre.
Exactly. Think about Disco Elysium. That game wasn't just successful because it was unique or because it tackled complex themes. It was the writing, the dialogue, the characters. Everything was so well crafted, people were drawn to it.
And even Hades, with its beautiful art style and fluid animation, it's like it shows that you don't need a massive budget to create something beautiful, something high quality.
Right. And Undertale, even with its retro pixel art, it told a story that resonated with people. It had these memorable characters, this amazing music. It was special.
So quality matters. That's good to know.
It does, it really does. But it's not just about making a great game in a vacuum, you know. These developers were also smart about their strategies, especially when it came to marketing and partnerships.
Right, like Elden Ring bringing in George R.R. Martin, or Nier, Automata teaming up with Platinum Games. Those were smart moves.
Absolutely. They knew their strengths, and they knew how to leverage the strengths of others. Elden Ring got that instant name recognition and storytelling boost from Martin, while Nier, Automata benefited from Platinum Games' action expertise. It's like they found those perfect collaborators, those missing pieces that helped elevate their games to the next level.
Like a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about big-name partnerships. Remember how Disco Elysium focused on those indie game festivals? That was strategic, too. They went directly to the people who would appreciate their game the most, who would understand its unique appeal.
It's like they knew their target audience and how to reach them effectively.
Exactly. And they also understood the power of online platforms. Undertale wouldn't have been as successful without YouTube, Twitch, all those fan creations and Let's Plays that people shared.
Yeah, it's like the online world is this incredible amplifier, right? It can take a game from relative obscurity to global stardom in what feels like the blink of an eye.
It really can. And these developers were smart enough to tap into that power, to use it to their advantage.
So we've got community, quality, strategic thinking. What else? Is there anything else we can add to this secret formula for success?
Well, there's one more crucial element: timing.
Timing. Like releasing a game at the right time to, like, capitalize on a trend or something.
That's part of it, yeah. But it's also about recognizing opportunities and being flexible enough to seize them.
Okay, can you give us some examples? Like, how did these games use timing to their advantage?
Well, Baldur's Gate 3 benefited from the whole Dungeons and Dragons revival that was happening, right? Stranger Things and all that. By releasing their game when D&D was super popular, they were able to tap into this whole new audience that was already excited about that kind of fantasy world.
Right, it's like they rode that wave of D&D popularity, right?
Exactly. And
Uh,
Adner, Automata, even though it was part of a series that was pretty niche, it came out at a time when action RPGs were becoming super popular and people were really looking for games with deep stories, you know? So it was the right game at the right time.
So it's about like paying attention to the market, understanding what people want, and positioning your game in a way that resonates with those desires.
Exactly. And sometimes timing is about being adaptable, about recognizing an opportunity even when you weren't expecting it.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, think about Undertale. Its success was partly because it went viral, right? People connected with the game's humor, the characters, the emotional depth. It resonated with them in a way that Toby Fox probably couldn't have predicted.
So it was like a happy accident.
In a way, yeah. And Toby Fox was smart enough to embrace that, to run with it, and that's how he ended up reaching a much bigger audience than he probably ever imagined.
Wow, it's like a combination of creativity, community, and just like good luck.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So we've got community, quality, strategic thinking, timing. It's like a whole recipe for success. But there's one more ingredient we need to talk about: platforms.
Right. We've talked about the big picture, but in part 3, we're going to zoom in on the specific platforms and events that help these games reach their full potential.
All right, we're back, and we're ready to talk about platforms.
Right.
You know, those specific places, those events that kind of acted like launch pads, sending these niche games into the mainstream.
Yeah. Right. Right. And some of them might surprise you. Like, we don't always think about them when we think about global success, you know?
Okay, yeah, I'm curious. What are we talking about here?
Well, let's start with indie game festivals. You know, those events that sometimes get overshadowed by the big industry giants like E3. They were actually super important for a game like Disco Elysium.
Indie game festivals, okay. But how do those help a game reach, like, a global audience?
Think of them as like curated showcases, right?
Mhm.
They're specifically for games that are, well, innovative, unique. And they attract a certain kind of crowd: critics, journalists, people in the industry who are looking for, something different, something fresh.
Gotcha. So it's like giving those tastemakers a concentrated dose of cool new games.
Exactly. And if a game wins an award at one of these festivals, well, that creates buzz. People start talking. Media outlets pay attention. It can even lead to publishing deals. It's a huge opportunity for indie games to get noticed.
And Disco Elysium, with its like focus on story and dialogue, it seems like it would be a perfect fit for that kind of environment.
It was, like, winning awards at the Independent Games Festival and the Game Developers' Choice Awards. It gave the game credibility, you know? It validated its quality, and that helped it reach a much bigger audience.
It's amazing how, like, strategically choosing the right platform, even something that seems kind of small, can have such a big impact.
Yeah, it's all about finding your audience, the people who will get it, the people who will appreciate what you're doing. But we can't forget about the big online platforms either, like YouTube, Twitch. We talked about how important they were for Undertale.
Yeah, and I feel like those platforms, they're so influential now, right? They can really make or break a game.
They can. It's like the online world is where communities form, where excitement spreads. And those platforms, they give a voice to that excitement. Like, players become creators, right? They're sharing their experiences, their fan art, their Let's Plays.
It's like everyone's a critic, everyone's a commentator, and they're all contributing to this huge ecosystem of gaming culture.
Exactly. YouTube, Twitch, they're like stages for that creativity and passion. And it helps people discover new games. It's like this never-ending cycle of discovery and engagement. And it's all driven by people who just love games.
Yeah, but it's not just those platforms, right?
Yeah.
I mean, social media plays a huge role too, like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Oh, absolutely. A well-timed tweet, a funny meme, a screenshot that captures like the perfect moment. All of that can go viral so fast, and it's all organic, It's
Yeah.
driven by real excitement, real experiences. It's not some calculated marketing campaign.
Right, it's authentic. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's like those platforms let developers connect with their audience in a way that wasn't possible before.
Yeah, they can build relationships, they can foster a sense of community. It's really changed the game, so to speak. Like, it's given indie developers in those niche games a chance to compete with the big guys.
Right, it's like leveling the playing field. And sometimes that online buzz, it can even spill over into like the mainstream media.
Totally. Look at Noir, Automata. It got great reviews, it was super popular online, and then boom, mainstream media starts picking it up. Articles, features, even TV segments.
It's like a domino effect, right? Success on one platform leads to exposure on another and another, and it just keeps growing.
Exactly. And I think it's something that everyone who creates, whether it's games, music, art, anything, it's something they need to understand. It's not just about making something great. It's about knowing how to navigate this interconnected world of platforms and communities.
It's a lot to take in, but it's exciting too, right?
It is. And like we said, the rewards can be huge.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. We've talked about community, quality, strategic thinking, timing, platforms. We've really explored these incredible journeys,
Yeah.
how these games went from niche to mainstream.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating look at how creativity, community, and just, I don't know, a little bit of luck can come together to create something truly special.
So as we wrap things up, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's this. Never underestimate the power of passion, the power of innovation, and the power of community. These games, they dared to be different. They had a vision, they believed in it, and they found a way to share it with the world. And they showed us that niche doesn't have to be limiting. It can be the starting point for something amazing.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, we'll bring this deep dive to a close. Thanks for joining us.